Hello everyone, I am Shweta and welcome to my channel Analytics by Shweta. In today's video, we will learn how to use the same period last year function in Power BI. What does same period last year mean? It is exactly as the name suggests. It gives us the result for the last year for the same period. Let us have a look to understand this. If you are looking at data from a yearly perspective, in our example, we would be looking at data for the hires in a company for 3 years. For example, if you are looking at hires for the year 2021, same period last year function would give us the hires for 2020. That is the same period but for last year. So 2021 has 1986 hires and the last year hires were 5175. If you are looking at data from a month and year perspective, so we are looking at the hires for January 2021. The same period last year would return us the hires for Jan 2020. And finally, if we are looking at the day, the month and the year, and we are looking at 2nd January 2021, then same period last year function would return us 2nd Jan 2020 data. That is the last year. So if you see from this, same period last year gives us the data for the same period for the last year based on what we have put in our visual. This was an introductory look into same period last year. Let us go to Power BI and have a better understanding of this function. We are back in Power BI. Let us have a look at our data model. Our data model is a simple data model which has the hires data for 3 years, which is connected with various dimension tables. We have a calendar table which has a date column, and that date column is connected to our hiring date in the hires data. Let's go to our report. If you see, we already have a pre-created measure for total hires, which would count the hires in our data set. Now, each and every employee has a unique employee code. So this function would give us a distinct count of the hires in our organization. Let us create a matrix visual. Let us go to the calendar table and add the year on the rows and the total hires in the values. If you see, this gives us the hires for the year. Now what we want to achieve in the same period last year is, next to these years, we want to see what were the hires for the last year. For this, we need to create a new measure. Let us do that. We are writing same period last year. We use the calculate. On the total hires, we use the same period last year function, and here we use the calendar table and the calendar date column, as that is our main date column, and we approve this measure. Let us go to our matrix visual and also add the same period last year function over here. Now if you look at this visual, you will see it is showing us the last year hires for the same period. If you look at 2021, it is showing 1986 hires, but 2020 had 5175 hires, which is here. If you see 2020, it had 5175 hires. So it is returning that value over here. Now let us look at it from a month's perspective. Let us duplicate this visual, and below the year, let us also add the month name. Let us expand this visual. If you look here, in January, for the current year, we had 32 hires. But for the last year, we had 242 hires. That means 2020 Jan had 242 hires. If you go over to Jan 2020 and look at the hires, you would exactly see 242 hires over here. Similarly, if you look at February, the current hires for the year is 64, whereas the last year February hires were 284. And if you go back and if you look here, 2020 February had 284 hires. Let's look at it from a day's perspective. Let us duplicate this visual and also add the day. Let us expand the month of January for both the years. Now, if you look at the data, 1st of January had 26 hires, 2nd of January has 6 hires. And we are now at 2021. If you see here, 1st of January for the same period last year, it gives us 26 hires, which is exactly the same as the number which is given here. Similarly, if you look at 2nd January 2021, it gives us 6 hires, which is exactly the same hires as the last year. The blanks which you see here is that for the current year, for that particular month, there were no hires. But same period last year would return the hires which is present for the same period in the selection. Now, if you continue to look, if you look at 15th January, it shows 15 hires were done in Jan 2020. And if you come here, 15 January 2021 also had 15 hires. So we have seen from 3 perspectives of how to use same period last year, from a yearly perspective, from a year and month perspective, and from a year, month and day perspective. Let us get a better understanding of these visuals. Let's look at it again from a year perspective. If you see here, 2020 has 5175 hires, whereas 2021 had 1986 hires. But same period last year would return the same value for the last year. So if you see 5175 is here and 5175 is here. Similarly, 2021 had 1986 hires. And if you look at 2022, same period last year, it exactly returns the same value which is present for the last year. Let's look at it from a month and year perspective. If you see here, Jan 2020 had 242 hires. And if you look at Jan 2021, again we get 242 hires for the same period last year. So it is the same. Let's see one more example. If you look at February 2020 had 284 hires, and 2021 February again returns 284 hires. So see, if you see here, it is completely matching. And this is how you look at from a month and year perspective. Let's look at it from a day, month and year perspective. If you see here, January 1st, 2020 had 26 hires. And if you go to 2021 January, again you see 26 hires. So it is the same. Let's see one more example. 2nd Jan 2020 had 6 hires. And if you go to 2021 2nd January, again you get 6 hires. So this was a deeper understanding of all these 3 visuals where we are seeing the same period last year function and the current period. You can use this function to compare both these years. So if you want to find the difference between the years, you want to see which years has the higher hires, or do any kind of functioning on this particular measure. So same period last year, always works with the filters which is present in the visual. So if you put a year in the filter, you would get a yearly same period last year. And if you put year and month, it will reflect the same period last year for the same year and for the same month. And similarly, for a day perspective, also it goes to the same day last year and retrieves the value. So this is how you use same period last year function in Power BI. Remember, in our data model, we had connected the calendar table with our highest data table, and the common column between them was the date. So we connected the date column of the calendar table to the hiring date in the highest data table. And later, when we use the same period function, we use the calendar date column, as that was the column which is the primary column which is connected to our fact table. I hope you understood how to use same period last year function. We would be covering more time intelligent function in further videos. So please keep a track of them. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell for more updates. Thank you for your time and have a nice day.